So, Sean, Happy New Year to you. Here we are at the beginning of 2026. We finished the final quarter of 2025. Just give us your thoughts on what we saw in 2025. What were the key themes? Any particular takeaways for you?
Yeah, 2025 turned out to be a surprisingly strong year. There was an awful lot of volatility. There was a number of shocks and concerns. Donald Trump frightened everyone with his Liberation Day tariffs. But what we've seen was that the major themes like the AI megatrend, the capital expenditure that was going into that, they all helped facilitate growth. And what we saw was actually strong equity market performance in the US. We actually saw an outperformance in Europe and the UK, which is highly unusual. And that's because people were looking to diversify away from the US. People were concerned about Trump. They were concerned about dollar weakness. The dollar was down 10% across the year. And they were looking for safe havens where maybe policy was a little bit more stable and there was no threat of a Trump in the UK, for example. But yeah, it turned out to be a very positive year in the end.
Very good. So equities obviously did very, very well. What about the other asset classes?
Yeah, so part of that diversification element, there were concerns about valuations in equities, especially in the US. We saw alternatives do brilliantly. So diversifiers actually had an incredible year. When you look at commodities, gold finished 65% up in 1 year, and I think silver finished 150% up in 1 year. So phenomenal performances from those assets. I think there was geopolitical reasons for that happening as well. There was the de-dollarization argument, China looking, to buy more gold rather than treasuries. But I think also protection against some of the maybe equity market concern. So people were looking to diversify. So diversification was a winner last year.
Excellent. So as we go into the new year, new themes this year, or what do you kind of see in your crystal ball as we look forward into this new year?
Yeah, it's a new day, but we're in the same mega trends, decade-long themes. The AI rollout, that this was always going to be a multi-decade possibly theme. So I think that we're going to still see the US innovation, from the mega caps still, like Google, Nvidia. We're still going to see those names referenced, all the time. Companies like Broadcom, Oracle, things like that. I do see the diversification element still being strong. I think Europe and the UK will have another good year. Maybe not outperform as strongly as they did last year, but again, Trump is Trump, so he could do some more surprises. I mean, he's already done a surprising thing in Venezuela already, 3 days into the new year. So if there's any more concern about, geopolitical volatility with regards to the US in particular, you might see some more safe haven seeking from investors. But and commodities, I still think commodities, alternative assets are a good diversifier in the current world, because if anything goes wrong with the AI rollout, earnings are highly under scrutiny right now, and I think having some safe diversifiers is very appropriate right now.
So that obviously still sounds positive for markets. What should investors really be alive to in terms of the risks? You mentioned geopolitical risk. What about things like inflation, interest rates, those types of things? Where do you see those potential elements for investors looking forward?
Yeah, I think inflation will remain slightly elevated above the target rates, but not too much of a concern. I think when we look at central banks, the US and the UK will likely keep on cutting this year. Growth is still strong. Inflation is at or near the target levels. And for the Eurozone, they're already much further ahead, so probably less cutting there, if any at all. When I look at other risks, I think valuation still is a big issue. There's a lot of promise and expectation put on this AI rollout, and it needs to see productivity improvements. It needs to see margin increases, and it needs to see earnings, beats to validate these high levels of valuation. That is definitely a risk. Other things like China versus US, they're definitely going into a battle on the tariff front, but also on the innovation front. So I think there is a bit of a battleground going on there. And then, yes, of course, the geopolitical, we've still got, Russia, Ukraine is ongoing, any further tensions in the Middle East. And of course, if Trump decides to do anything that would surprise or shock markets again, which is more likely than not, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So diversification remains key, and investors should, though, look into 2026 with a positive outlook.
Yeah, absolutely.